if we concentrate on doing the right thing and bringing in the right sort of content and really empowering young people and making parents feel better about how the club, I suppose how it's performing.
Yeah.
In terms of the welfare of that child and the mental health of that child, and they're seeing the efforts that the club are going to. We hope we think it's a small price to play. I mean, we're like looking at 50 cent a podcast per kid, but if the numbers are huge in a club, as you say, then we'll charge less.
Yeah.
But it's a small input compared to some of the bills that the parents have to pay.
Yeah.
And what we're pleased about, I suppose, is that we're not going in asking for huge amounts of money that parents will give out about. We're in on a mission to bring everything into a better place, and we're not going to break the bank.
Hi, I'm James Moore, and this is the Drive Phase podcast for Coordinate Sport. This is your show about sports founders, leaders, and experts, and the stories behind their business journeys. On today's episode, we have a different format. I was on location at the United Soccer Coaches Convention in California, and I was lucky enough to sit down with Niall Quinn. So, as an Arsenal fan, he's been a bit of a hero of mine growing up, but we tried to steer clear of just straight football chat and discussed his current venture, which is a really exciting club-based podcast format, which is available to soccer clubs across the US and hopefully in the UK also. And that's called Team Taca. So great chat. We managed to sit down at the convention, so hopefully we've got good sound coming through. But yeah, we enjoyed talking about that, talking about youth sports, and we did steer a little bit into soccer as well.
Appreciate you joining me today, and it's my first conference. I don't know if you've been before to this one, so I'm just taking it all in, and like with business to sport, and I guess one of the things we're talking about is that pay-to-play model in the US for soccer and how it can, I guess, maybe stifle the national team and stuff. Not everyone's going to come through, but you can see it in full effect here, like the business side of soccer, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. I came, first of all, 2 years ago to Kansas City to the coaching convention and was on there. And it was just after the pandemic. Everybody was very excited to be traveling again. And I came across from Ireland. I'd spent the pandemic year working for the National Association. Yeah. And opportunity came to come and speak. Soccer.com said, would you come over and speak at the convention? I said, yeah, sure, I'll come over. No idea about the scale, about the size of the industry, and not so much the professional soccer industry, but the level below, the youth soccer industry, and how it was all working. And I was taken by it. And Soccer.com were great. They said to me at the end of the week, if you fancy coming back out, if there's anything you think you can do for the game, if it's good for the game, we'll support you. If it's not, we won't. So we had a good look at it for about 6-9 months.
Right.
And we thought maybe we could help make money for the clubs and join in this kind of commercial sort of world.
Kind of analysing what their challenges were at the time. Like for the
yeah. And we were a bit naive at the start. We thought, okay, we can maybe bring in e-commerce into play that will make the clubs beneficiaries. And very quickly we realised, well, actually, that's not an issue for the clubs. And we spoke to a lot of clubs. We went and travelled for 9 months. We spoke to a lot of clubs, and we kind of found a familiar pattern where clubs probably needed a little bit of help to ease tensions with fee-paying parents.
All right. Is that just that they're not maybe, I don't know, showing the value or being communication?
Well, I suppose communication was a big word there, and we looked and saw. I suppose we'll call it a huge problem. No, but we saw an area that we could improve.
Yeah.
The club's communication, and in turn what that means is they're standing within their local community, and obviously their most important customers being the fee-paying parents.
Yeah.
And we decided to put some stuff together and see how clubs would like that, and we got 6 clubs to come and trial with us. We put some podcasts together, and just so that you're aware of what we do. So we're a podcast as a service company, which is a private podcast for each club. We put the middle of the podcast in every podcast. It's the same every 2 weeks.
Right.
But we use all our contacts in the game and all the people that we know in the game, not just great players or great coaches, but also great academy directors, the most successful nutritionists, the most successful sort of, I suppose, backup the sort of professionals that are in the elite game. And what we've decided to do, we want to bring big locker room thinking into every locker room in United States youth football. And when we put our bit in the middle, we then get the club to top and tail it with our technology, for them to take part in their club podcast by doing maybe 6-7 minutes before our 12:15, and then 6-7 minutes afterwards. We wrap it into an app and we send it out to all the parents and the players. And so the club moving its identity into the homes almost of their players, and improving that relationship with the family, and the family seeing that the club are actually caring more outside of the practice field than just 7 till 8 on a Thursday. And what it has kind of developed into is I suppose it's like the new newsletter for the club to speak to their audience as opposed to sending emails.
That's the trend now. And obviously, still get the newsletters, but generally people want to either watch something or listen to something.
It's an astonishing growth. I mean, 15 years ago, everybody thought emails was the answer to the world. And now, clubs are telling us they were spending a lot of time doing newsletters, and some of them had an 8% click through for people actually reading all.
That's with all the members as well, right? So
yeah, and that's with your own people. So with us, it's a private podcast. We're not on Spotify. We're there for the club to send out to the parents and the children, and it's all educative and empowering content for the children, which is every 2 weeks. But in the off week, we do a small podcast, a mini podcast, and that is just for the parents. So we do 15 minutes, and it's our aim through Sky Eddie, who works for us, who has soccerparenting.com, that we sort of bring a different view of children's sort of time in football for the parents.
Is that like a positive soccer month?
Correct. Exactly, and to reevaluate how you enjoy your kids' soccer.
Yeah.
And to give really good tips and advice about both of you getting more enjoyment out of it. That's a kind of a breakthrough for us, and the clubs really appreciate the help with that.
That's what I was going to say, because when you look at the content you're creating, and with your profile as well, and some of the partners you've got, you're creating really high level content, and that's the thing I mentioned. I mean, you've got Jeff Treves on there.
Yeah, Jeff's our head of content, so Jeff puts it all together, and Jeff also trains up the club hosts.
Awesome.
And provides scripts for each show for them. So that's Jeff's job.
The parenting stuff is I guess equally as popular, or say
So we were putting together what we thought would be, I suppose, a suitable program that parents and players would listen to, and it's very hard to get, I suppose, an 11-year-old boy or girl to listen to the same thing and get the same out of it as a 35, 40-year-old parent.
Yeah.
And so we split it up, and we also like the fact that doing the podcast every 2 weeks for the young players, doing the main podcast every 2 weeks means that the podcast has 2 weeks to resonate. Whereas if you're doing it every week, last week's stuff becomes old pretty quickly.
The new ones here,
you're missing what's here. Exactly. So it also helps in terms of the club's input, and the podcasters at the club that are selected by the club, who Jeff works with to make into good podcasters, that they're only doing it once every 2 weeks, not every week. So it's not a strain.
So that's one of the things I'm interested in, is kind of that. What have the challenges been there? So obviously, are people volunteering for that role, or are they getting?
Some do. Yeah, no, some do. So we, as I say, we've 14 clubs now. We've 6 in the trial. So we've had a good mix of people. Some people who've been at the club a long time and do all the work at the club, and they took it upon themselves to do it. Others, young people, go on, have a go, and it's amazing. But both sets of people are pretty petrified on the first one. But by a little bit of education, a little bit of hand holding, by level 2 and 3, they sound, or by podcast 2 and 3, they sound like they've been doing this all their lives.
What's the type of content that for the club level? Is that where is it like here's the scores from last week?
It can be that. It's really up to each club. It can be an interview within the club.
Oh, nice.
It could be talking about fundraisers coming up. It could be talking about camps and tournaments. But really, what we try and ask the club hosts to do is, instill the club's values into the homes. So if that means today we're going to interview our longest serving coach here, tell us of the highs and lows here at the club, tell us about the success stories, tell us, about your time here, that can be enough, but also we let them know what's coming from Jeff and our other hosts in the main art of the podcast. And we ask, or we allow for them to feed into it. So if it's somebody talking about, I don't know, resilience, okay, in young people, it's not just for football, but it's for life, and making young people resilient and learning from the football pitch. Can they show in their first part that they actually feed into this and they've already got that covered, and our club then looks better because we're doing what Jose Mourinho says is the best thing to do with young kids,
There's the old club policy.
Correct. And sending that message out into the community and giving the parents a voice as well. You know, if the parents want to comment on anything, it's just, you know, it's the modern way, as opposed to sending a newsletter out and hoping that people read it. That's our difference. And along our content really is critical. And along the way, you know, we got to empower, we got to educate, but really we got to bring good habits.
Yeah.
All round.
Yeah, I'm thinking about obviously the modeling podcasting. Obviously, as you get more successful, more listeners, start monetizing, advertising, things like that. Are you seeing this as I guess for the larger clubs, they might have thousands of listeners instantly. Are you thinking that's a good way for them to maybe add local sponsors?
For them, yes. So for us, it's important, I suppose, that the premium of what we're doing stays private within the club sort of membership.
Yeah.
So we're not on Spotify. We're not on the public channels. That said, you know, there is an opportunity if the clubs wanted to grow a little bit bigger and extend into their region to take in non-players and non-players' families. That's a conversation in terms of growth. But I
was thinking even if the club membership is big, someone might want to, I'm going to get a cool restaurant, I want to put an advert on there to get all the members.
That's it. So that's exactly. So on a local level, we can do that. And where it's difficult for, you know, so some clubs have got really good sponsorship and they sell themselves quite well. Others find it difficult.
Yeah.
And with the clubs who find it difficult, we're there to help and add a string to their bow. So right now they're offering signage at the practice field and perhaps on the jerseys, on the jerseys, you know, sponsorship names. So we're going to say, well, okay, now you can go to a local sponsor and they can actually talk to all of the members, you know. And you're right, if it's a restaurant offering 20% off,
so yeah,
restaurants, if you're part of the club, correct, yeah. So there's that. But then, of course, as we populate and get bigger in terms of the amount of clubs we onboard, then it starts to become attractive to the bigger companies to say, okay, I can speak now. So we'll have a national sponsor that we can bring into play that will benefit the clubs, and we'll split that sponsorship revenue, or the local sponsorship revenue, obviously, which comes with a little bit of work done at local level.
Right.
So either way, it's a nice sort of place, and we have to charge clubs for what we do, but we're always looking at ways. I mean, how can we make that easier on you and easier?
Always trying to raise money, right? That's the thing.
Well, that's it. But I think, you know, if we concentrate on doing the right thing and bringing in the right sort of content and really empowering young people and making parents feel better about how the club, I suppose how it's performing.
Yeah.
In terms of the welfare of that child and the mental health of that child, and they're seeing the efforts that the club are going to. We hope we think it's a small price to play. I mean, we're like looking at 50 cent a podcast per kid, but if the numbers are huge in a club, as you say, then we'll charge less.
Yeah.
But it's a small input compared to some of the bills that the parents have to pay.
Yeah.
And what we're pleased about, I suppose, is that we're not going in asking for huge amounts of money that parents will give out about. We're in on a mission to bring everything into a better place, and we're not going to break the bank.
Yeah, and I guess the club's going to like it because it makes them more professional. They're trying to attract more players.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We think the club's values have now an opportunity to project it into the local community far more than just on the training ground on a Tuesday or Thursday night, and maybe at match day on a Sunday. You know, there's an opportunity. You know, like the perfect world for us is on the way to and from training, mom or dad, whoever's bringing the kids to training, that they listen to it in the car.
Yeah.
That would be perfect for us because, you know, now at the dinner table as well. But there's actually stuff in it now. I'm an ex-player. I'm 57. I've raised 2 kids. Sky Eddie spoke recently about how to handle a situation where your child hasn't played that well.
Okay.
Yeah. And I listened to it, you know. And I'm an ex-player. Thought I knew everything, right? And what I got from it, I really wish I'd heard it before my kids started playing soccer. My daughter was very good. My son was a very good player, but I thought they had an advantage because I had played the game and I could make them do more.
Yeah.
And I could make them see things my way, and I was doing it the exact wrong way. The exact wrong way. And I only wish I was back and I had Sky Eddie telling me that.
So what was 8 years so much to that conversation then after?
So I was of the opinion that I could get them to do more. I'd tell them to do more. You're going to be great, you two. So you two have to be the leader on the team. You have to do this, you have to do that. But actually, they probably weren't the best player in the team.
Right.
You know, and suddenly it becomes a chore for them.
So it's like a burden to carry.
It's a burden to carry because, I got to impress my dad. He's, you know, and then I've seen documentaries. I see David Beckham talk about his dad.
Yeah.
And how difficult it was. Tiger Woods, I've seen talk about his dad. How do you know? Some of them got there.
Those are extreme though, right?
Those are extreme, but they're ones who got there.
True. Yeah.
all the ones who didn't get there. And so I thought I knew a lot about football.
Yeah.
Okay. And probably still do. You know, I spoke on TV for 20 years after I quit, telling everybody how football should be. Okay. I was a voice and I know my stuff. In my own house, I got it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm badly wrong. And I can remember one day my daughter throwing her kit bag at me.
So,
You know, and looking back, how right she was. What was I thinking of? I thought push, you know, get more out of them. I'm using all my experience in getting them to the next stage. Worst thing I could have ever done.
I saw, and I don't know, it's a shame, I can't attribute the quote, and I listened to something recently similar, and it was how to speak to your kids about the game, and rather than being really specific, it's just like the message was, oh, they said, what's the best thing to say to your kids about the sport? And I love watching you play. Like, and if you say that, they know, oh, well, he just loves me play, so if I go and play hard, then he's going to love.
And Sky speak about sport with this another time.
If I put one of our quotes,
yeah. And I love watching your team play.
Yeah.
So it's actually can go even deeper. But it really is. It's an area that's kind of people just got on with it. And in the old days, if you were born with a bit of resilience, or you know you got tough, like when we went as kids to Arsenal at 16, 17, like we were babies.
Yeah.
And you were thrown in there. You were doing all these duties. You were cleaning boots. You were doing all sorts of kit duties, and ultimately you were training as well. And you were learning to be a footballer, and you were in a group, maybe 14 of you in the year. You know, and ultimately you're trying to grab the jersey off the next fella sitting to you, who's meant to be your mate, because you're on this sort of quest.
Only that was it. So when you went through that, I've got a nerd out. I'm an Arsenal fan, so when you went through that YTS, I guess it would be called back then. Is that right?
Yeah, YTS for the first year or two, and then I got a pro contract. Yeah.
How many from your initial group went for?
Well, we had a pretty extraordinary group. Okay, you hear about the Man United class of '92. Okay, Neville, Giggs, Scholes, the whole lot of them, right? Beckham, Giggs. So everybody talks about them, but in 8 years earlier, the 83-84 class in Arsenal. So I'll go through it. Michael Thomas won the league for Arsenal at Anfield, May 1989, and then went and signed for Liverpool. Michael Thomas made it England international. Tony Adams, one of the greats. Martin Keown, great career. Arsenal ended up letting him go and then brought him back for about £6 million many years later. So there's three. Paul Merson, what a career! Like what a player. Rocky Rocastle.
That's all. Yeah, that was right. To say.
I think losing count now. So Martin Hayes, who had 2 great years for us, drifted out of the game, but he I think he had well over 100 first team games. He was part of our group. I better count myself in there because I had a bit of a career. But there's an incredible chunk of players who came through from the one youth team.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to use that as an example of
but then there would be years either side of that when hardly anybody made it.
Yeah,
you know. Now we had an incredible group. It really was, and I suppose looking back, we had character. Like Tony Adams was a man before he was meant to be.
Yeah, you
know, and he was your leader in the dressing room, and it was tougher then. It wasn't holistic by any approach. It was so you had to get tough or you were gone. You know.
There's that question. I know you hear it a lot in terms of that process of compared to academies now, right? And obviously there's so much more money in the game earlier on versus doing. I don't even know if it's probably goes against like employment law or whatever. You know, in terms of like working.
So you
apprenticeship, like
so a hunger to succeed.
Yeah,
you know. I sometimes worry about kids who get massive contracts.
It's also like a gratitude, right? That you've got to do that. You've got to do that process to be able to actually get it.
Well, you know, it's funny. I remember sitting down with my wife when we had our 2 children. They were small, and we gone, you know, what's the best way? Like we weren't born with a manual how to be. Sorry, when we got married, we didn't know how to raise children. You know, we'd no manual to say, okay, your parents now, you got to do this. And so, you know, we were young, we had our 2 children. And one of the things that we both agreed we should give our children, which we're really pleased with now, not saying we're perfect, you know, we got a lot wrong, as I said earlier, or I did certainly, but we said that we try and instill a work ethic in them.
Yeah.
And a work ethic gives you a 51% chance of getting something right. Fundamental. And I sometimes worry about work ethic in young, talented players who think their skill
where it's come too soon.
Yeah, where it's come too soon, and that hunger is the flame isn't as high in terms of within themselves to say, okay, I got to make this all ends. I'm going to give it everything I have. And I've seen so many talented players who I thought they have to make it.
Yeah.
Even in the year that I told you about, where 7 or 8 of us made it out of that group, I would name a couple of players who didn't make it, who at probably 80% of our time together were better players than me.
You hear that a lot, right? There's always like 1 or 2 in the academy who are the best players at the time. Yeah.
And I've never really got to the bottom of the answer. I think it's something to do with there's a level of where you go and you have to drop off when it becomes too much.
Right.
You know? But with all the skills they had, which players like Tony Adams and I didn't have, but we had heart and character.
Yeah.
We got through, and they didn't. Now maybe the game was rougher then, and it was easier for, you know, big lads like Tony and I to throw our weight around, and maybe the smaller player got lost a little bit. But I haven't quite worked out, you know, what the perfect answer is in terms, you know, we do need I think. In general, you know, I'm delighted our 2 kids have a work ethic, that's fine. But I see the young players that come through. I like what they're doing. They play with a smile on their face.
The style of football is totally different.
Totally different
in England.
Totally different. Yeah, totally different. The game is, and for the better. It's prettier. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Some people want to go back to the old days. Oh, I'd love to see a big tackle again. I'd love to see 6 studs going through somebody's knee or something. You know, it was a more difficult time, and I'm not advocating it. It was my time. That's what it was like. But I don't know. I don't know how you measure this, but dealing with adversity was part of being at Arsenal as a kid. Every day. I don't want to go too far here and say, oh, it was really tough. Like, you know, it was abusive. It wasn't. But it was enough to make you stand up and fight it back.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's, I guess that maybe society as well, like that doesn't exist outside of the game, is it? In general.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, and I want people to have a work ethic. I want them to have a desire. I want them to dream.
Yeah.
Everybody, every young player, every young person. I'm not, as I said to you earlier, I got it wrong with my own children. So I'm not telling people what to do. I'm just harping back to a time when you had to roll your sleeves up and you had to give it every day.
Yeah.
You know, there was no easy path in. And the skillful players who were far better players than the ones like Tony and I, as I said, who were tough, they didn't make it, some of them, you know, and they were delightful footballers, you know. But we had some who did. Rocky Rocastle, one of the most skillful players I've ever known.
Yeah.
Could handle himself.
Yeah.
You know, he could do both. It was a great pleasure to play with these guys, you know. Gus Caesar was another one. I thought of another one out of the group.
Gus. Maybe there's some more out.
Yeah.
To fact check it after. But, no, I was gonna say, I mean, because how you see it as well in terms of they might make it, but they get a lot early, right? So so they might not go to the next level. So you could say, I guess as an average player now, it's different to being an average player back in the day. So average player is multi-millionaire.
Yeah, but
win any trophies.
But I'd never complain about that. I think the game has developed to a certain extent whereby there's huge money in it, and the players who play deserve to be paid. Like, so I'll never change. Now, it just so happens that, you know, Sky TV came about 10 years too late for me to be fabulously wealthy. But I would never begrudge that. I do.
Maybe on the desire to I want to be a great, I want to win a trophy.
Now, the great players, doesn't matter what you pay them, they're always going to be great. Yeah. But there a few slip through who get overpaid and put their hands on their hips.
Yeah. And
it's frustrating, you know, to see talent kind of go that way.
Yeah.
You know,
see a bit with the big clubs, right? They buying the squad out rather than some of the squad players would be first team.
Well, and it's like the pressure, somewhere like Man United now over the last summer, the pressure on the players. I'm not saying it's easy, right? The pressure on the players. But this might sound a little old-fashioned, but I follow Sunderland a lot now because, you know, it's easy to follow Man City and Arsenal. It's in your face day in, day out. But Sunderland's my old club, and I watch with them, and I'm kind of interested in their journey, perhaps more so than where Man City and Arsenal are. And are they going to get back? I love to see a tackle. You know, I'm still a bit old-fashioned that way. I love to see a good haymaker. I'll get the people out of their seats, get the people behind you, bring passion into it, you know. And I can be guilty of giving out about a player because he didn't do that, you know. So, but that's old-fashioned, right? So I don't want to get caught up in that. I do appreciate the skill of it all. But then I take a look at a club like Manchester United, and I see top players, and I sometimes afterwards kind of agree with Roy Keane a little bit at times. Effort, show the people, go down fighting, you know, come off the pitch, there's nothing left in you, you know, but that's not what we see all the time, you know.
So just wrapping up, I always talk football all day, but
No worries.
what's your thoughts for this season then in terms of the
Man City are going to be hard to stop. Although was there news today that De Bruyne is injured again, or not De Bruyne? No, sorry, somebody just in the hall there. No, they were saying Haaland. It was Haaland the struggle with an injury. So it's not definite this year, but I do think they're going to come with a wet sail again. Arsenal, like my other old club, I think it's time they won it again. You know,
wobble at the moment, but
a bit of a wobble, over the last while. They need. Hey, listen. That's why the strikers get nowadays. That's why the strikers get all the money. You know, they need one that scores goals, and it hasn't really happened for them. I don't know. It's a tough one to call. Liverpool are strong.
Yeah.
Spurs are really sticking the chest out and showing up. You know.
Yeah.
You're a bit worried about them.
No, don't worry about Spurs, love.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were doing well, but no.
Yeah. No. There's some. It's great to have so many clubs in with a shout. You know, there's 2-horse race in March, I think, wasn't it, last year or February?
Yeah.
And you've kind of knew Arsenal weren't quite, and City just took off. But I think it'll be different. It'll go tighter this year.
So yeah, fingers crossed anyway. So
yeah, no, and you.
Yeah, but I mean, wishing you all the success for the app. And
thanks very much.
The World Cup comes in as well. I'm sure you get another boost as well.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, and you're on the same journey here with what you were doing. So we'll stay friends through it all, and if we can help, delighted to do that. And whatever we both do, let's make sure it's good for soccer. And you did. Yeah, please. Brilliant. Thanks, James.
Good on you, man.